Hello everyone, and welcome back to mountmoontcg. In today's episode, we're going to be going over some cards that I think are going to be the best from the new upcoming set, Surging Sparks, set to be released November the 8th here in the United States. So like I do when a new set comes out, let's look at what I think are going to be some of the most competitive cards from the set. This was a hard list to do. There's a lot of interesting cards in this set. But maybe some spoiler alerts. I don't necessarily think that there is a best card in this set. So this will be a little bit interesting. I did have to rack my brain a little bit for this whole list. There's a lot of interesting cards in this set, that cards that can go with a few different decks. So let's jump right in. Number 10, we got Rotom. So Rotom was a card that I was a little bit unaware of until very recently. It's got the Crushing Pulse attack for a electric energy. Your opponent reveals their hand, discard all item cards and Pokemon tool cards you find there. So this can be very disruptive to your opponent. This can be, well, because you're discarding all their item cards. Item cards are essentially kind of the backbone to most decks. Like, for example, if you're going against, let's say, a Lost Box deck, and you happen to discard 2 Mirage Gates, maybe 3 Mirage Gates, that they're saving for later, it can totally cripple their deck. Or if you're playing against, let's say, I guess any deck, really. I mean, if you're going against something that needs to find basic Pokemon quick, like you find a couple of Nest Balls in their hand, or Ultra Balls to kind of get rid of their Pokemon search, stuff like that. You can get rid of rare candies if you're going against like a Stage 2 deck, like Charizard EX or Dragapult EX, things like that. Can also get rid of some very vital tool cards. They can get rid of, the brave. I think it's Bravery Charm. Yeah, the big charm that you put on the Raging Bolt decks to increase basic Pokemon's HP by 50. Could get rid of the ancient capsule for these ancient decks. It can get rid of a couple of very niche tool cards like Defiance Band, things like that, that can be a little bit annoying. So, the fact that Rotom can be very annoying for your opponent, I mean, I kind of like it. You know the attack's very good when you look at it and be like, man, I hope that attack never happens to me, because that looks like it could change the course of a game. And then the second attack, Energy Short, 20 damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Could be good if your opponent has like 4 or 5 energy attached to a Pokemon. Could do 80 to 100 with 1 energy. So, the Crushing Pulse could be a very annoying attack to go up against. So that is there at number 10. And then coming up here at number 9, we have Miloti EX. Miloti EX has the ability Sparkling Scales. Prevent all damage from and effects of attacks from your opponent's Terra Pokemon done to this Pokemon. So this is kind of one of these safeguard Pokemon, where they can't get hit by a certain type of Pokemon. We've seen this many times before. There's the Safeguard Suicune. There's a Wobbuffet with Safeguard, which we actually covered in our 2000s, which we will be covering in a 2004, I think it's 2004 or 2005 Worlds deck. You'll have to wait and see when that comes out. A little spoiler for something down in the future. But yeah, we've seen abilities like this before where it says a certain Pokemon cannot do damage to this certain Pokemon. So the fact that Terra Pokemon are getting very popular, there's the Dragapult EX, which I mentioned, there's the Charizard EX, there is the Teal Mask Ogerpon EX, which sees a lot of play. There's a lot of Terra Pokemon that are very popular right now. So it's important to keep in mind that if you wanna, not take damage from those types of decks, maybe running a 1/1 Milotic might be enough for you to get your opponent stuck. Because if they can't hit your Milotic and you're powering up a Milotic, you should be able to win the game. Hypno Splash for a water and 2 color synergy does 160, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now asleep. not awful. I mean, a special condition for attack is a nice bonus, but really this is here for the fact that Terra Pokemon are getting very popular. We might end up getting into a format where Terra Pokemon are just running wild. They're just everywhere, where like every single deck is playing Terra Pokemon. So this could be a good way to maybe stall your opponent a little bit, maybe set up your board, or your opponent just can't attack you at all. We'll have to wait and see how good Miloti ends up becoming. So Miloti is here at number 9. And then coming up next at number 8, we have Brilliant Blender. Now this might remind some of you old school players of a card about 10 years ago. So Brilliant Blender is an A-Spec, and the effect of the A-Spec is search your deck for up to 5 cards, and discard them, then shuffle your deck. Battle Compressor, anybody? Battle Compressor was a very, very popular card in the Night March decks. And if any of you have a little bit of PTSD like I do from Night March, yeah, this could be good in some decks. Of course, Battle Compressor was, you look through your deck for 3 cards and discard them. And that was back, when we, like I said, Night March, where you did more damage for every Night March in your discard pile. You could also put like your supporters in there when you would VS Seeker and other stuff like that. So Battle Compressor was very good back in the day. So I'm glad to see they brought it back, but in an A-Spec form, so it kind of balances it out a little bit. There are a couple of decks that would love to see a card like this. Immediate thoughts are United Wings, because United Wings is basically this generation's Night March. Maybe Lugia V-Star could take advantage of this card. Search your deck for all of your Archeops and gen discard them because you don't need them anymore. And then you use your Lugia V-Star ability to bring those Archeops back onto your bench. And we all know how Lugia V-Star goes. If you run a deck that needs to put a lot of things in the discard pile, maybe you want to get your energy in the discard pile like a Raging Bolt deck, maybe this A-Spec is good for you. But normally how I rate the A-Specs on a general level is it better than Prime Catcher? And the answer is not really. I mean, this has its spot in the format, don't get me wrong. Prime Catcher, I think we all agree, is the number 1 A-Spec. It's the best A-Spec in the game. Some decks play different A-Specs because they do different things. And I think this does have a place in the format. Yep, some decks will definitely take advantage of this. So, it can be really good. The fact that it's basically an old school Battle Compressor, but just in a new school form, I think it's enough for me to put it here at number 8. And then coming up next at number 7, we have Gravity Mountain. It is a stadium card that states, each stage 2 Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's, gets minus 30 HP. Now, this can be very relevant. Say your opponent is playing something like a Gardevoir EX. Now, Gardevoir has 310 HP. So if you minus 30 from that to 280. Now, if you're playing something like maybe like a Giratina V-Star, you don't have to use your V-Star attack to knock out, the Gardevoir EX. You can just use your regular attack for 280 to get that perfect knockout. And also, if your opponent's stage 2 has, say, a Charizard EX in play with, 330 HP, and you do maybe 310 damage to it, something like that. Not enough for the knockout. You can put down the Gravity Mountain, and then your opponent's Charizard is just basically knocked out. That seems kind of neat. So this can try to hit for some numbers if you are struggling to maybe two-shot certain stage 2 Pokemon like Charizard or Dragapult for some reason. So this can be pretty darn decent. Instead of 3-shotting some big 2-stage Pokemon, instead of 3-shotting them, you're now 2-shotting them. So this can be very good. I don't know how many decks are going to take full advantage of Gravity Mountain, but It's a way to make, some stage 2 Pokemon, a little less good. And I'm fine with that. So Gravity Mountain will be here at number 7. Next up, number 6, we have a reprint of a card we have seen before in the Pokemon TCG. It is Counter Gain. Counter Gain is a Pokemon tool which states if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, attacks used by the Pokemon this card is attached to cost 1 colorless less. Now, I was a huge fan of this card when Azoric GX Lycanroc GX was in the format many years ago, and this was a card that I played in that deck to use my Lycanroc GX attack when I didn't have exactly the right amount of energy, and this helped me use some attacks. So I don't see any reason as to why this can't help some decks, maybe help those decks a little easier attack. If my wording is a little bit off on that, but this is to help some Pokemon attack. But you do have to remember, you do have to be behind on prize cards, and this takes away 1 colorless from your attack. So it's not any type of energy, it's just 1 colorless. So this can be very good. You can get this card with Arven if you really need to. Arven does search for the Pokemon tool card and an item card. So this can be gotten from the deck pretty a little easier than when I think when Counter Gain was in the format last. This can be a very good card, and just so you got to have some kind of something nice for you to have when you're behind on prizes, and Counter Gain can help even the odds in certain matchups. So if you have a big Pokemon that has, like, let's just say 3 colorless attack, 3 colorless energy for the attack, you can put the Counter Gain on it. You can use a card like Crispin to attach an energy from the deck onto it. It grabs that other energy, then you attach the energy, and there you go. An attack that normally costs 3 colorless energy, you got it to work in 1 turn. That's pretty cool. And yeah, Counter Gain, I'm a big fan of Counter Gain. So Counter Gain is here at number 6. Alright, coming in at number 5, we have Hydreigon EX. Now, I'm a little bit excited for Hydreigon EX. It is a Darkness type Pokemon, and I do love me some Darkness type Pokemon. It's got 330 HP, it is a Stage 2. It has the attack Crashing Headbutt. For 2 energy, 200 damage, discard the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Now, I kind of like attacks that can discard cards from the top of your opponent's deck. Especially if they're 3 very good cards. 3 cards that they really want. So, like, let's just say you're going against a Charizard EX deck again. Crashing Headbutt, you can get rid of like a couple of energy that they really need to grab with the Charizard EX ability. Or maybe get rid of their rare candies. You can get rid of a lot of things that they might need for their next turn. And also 200 damage is not terrible. You are 2-shotting everything in the format, so that's fine. Also, it's a Darkness and a Colorless, and that's pretty easy to do. Like I mentioned, we have Crispin in the format. There's Dark Patch in the format. There's many other things that we can do to power up Hydreigon EX pretty quick. There's also the Terra tool. There's energy. There's many other things that you can use to get this attack. And then we got Obsidian here for a Psychic, Dark, Metal, and Colorless energy. 130, and then the attack does 130 to 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So you can essentially take 3 prizes in 1 turn, if not more. This can knock out, a lot of, 1 prize Pokemon, can knock out your opponent's Greninjas, can knock out their Noctowls, can knock out, many things on your opponent's bench. Do keep in mind this will not hit the bench if your opponent has Manaphy in play. Do keep that in mind. We do have Manaphy for a little while yet. But maybe when Manaphy rotates, maybe this deck sees a lot more play. We'll have to wait and see. The 4 energy cost is is a lot to deal with. But if you can get this up and running, you're essentially doing 390 damage in one turn. That's not terrible. I mean, if you can get 2 Obsidian attacks up and running, like turn after turn, you put the damage on to 2 EXs, or 3 EXs, excuse me, and you're 2-shotting 3 EXs, you win the game. It's kind of how the game works. Take 6 prizes as fast as you can. This can definitely do that. It might be a little hard to get the 4 energy on to Hydreigon. There's ways to do it. Like I said, there's the Crispin method. There's the counter gain that we have. There's, if you want to go like the Blissey EX route and then use Glass Trumpet. I don't know. There's ways to do it. I'm not saying it's 100% doable or not doable. I'm just saying there's options. And I like Hydreigon. Hydreigon's a cool Pokemon. Doesn't get talked about enough because a lot of people forget about Hydreigon because there's, Dragonite, that's really cool. Garchomp's really cool. Flygon's really cool. Hydreigon gets forgotten about. And that's sad. So I'm going to throw Hydreigon a bone. So, you did it, buddy. I consider you one of the best cards in the set. Not the best. Still pretty good. Hydreigon at number 5. Next up, coming in at number 4, we have Pikachu EX. Now, a lot of people are hyping up this Pikachu EX, and let's see if I share their sentiment. It is a basic electric-type Pokemon with 200 HP. It has the ability Resolute Heart. If this Pokemon has full HP and would be knocked out by damage from an attack, it is not knocked out, and its remaining HP becomes 10. Now, this is a pretty good ability. If you put this ability on any other Pokemon, it makes that Pokemon a lot more playable. Just because it is only 200 HP, so it can get one-shotted, I don't want to say pretty easily, but decently easily. Decently easily? I'll have to work on my grammar. But you know what I mean. It can get one-shotted easily. So this Resolute Heart ability makes running this Pikachu EX a little bit better. Now, the attack is not bad. For a Grass, Lightning, and Metal Energy, 300 damage, and then discard 3 energy from this Pokemon. 300 damage is enough to knock out almost anything in the format, except for some Stage 2 Pokemon, like I mentioned earlier, like your Gardevoir EX, your Charizard EX, etc. But there is that stadium that I mentioned earlier. You guys remember Gravity Mountain? If you have Gravity Mountain in play, the Stage 2s are 30 less HP, around the 300 range. Yeah, you can use Pikachu EX to potentially one-shot those Stage 2 Pokemon. Now, discarding the 3 energy from this Pokemon is a little bit annoying, but we're doing 300 damage, so there has to be a setback for the attack. But, like I mentioned, there is ways to get the energy back on the Pikachu EX. Like I mentioned, there's the Blissey EX method. If you want to get a couple Blissey EX into play, then play the Glass Trumpet to put the energy on to the Blisseys, and then use the Blissey ability to move the energy to the Pikachu EX. There's a way to do that. There's Crispin, I've said everything that there is. Well, there is one more method in how you can power up a Pikachu, but we'll get to that later. Now, do keep in mind one setback with Pikachu EX. Actually, 2 setbacks. Let me explain. There's Dusclops, Dusknoir in the format. So if they do knock themselves out and put their damage counters onto this Pikachu EX, it no longer has full HP, and then you can attack Pikachu and then knock it out because it no longer has full HP, so Resolute Heart would not activate. And of course, if you somehow manage to get Pikachu EX poisoned, you could do all your damage, put up to 190 HP, but then the poison or burn, there's still burn in the format, goes through and hits the Pikachu between turns. The Pikachu will still be knocked out, so do keep that in mind. Also, 1 retreat cost, not horrible. Not horrible at all. Could potentially see this in Miraidon decks. I doubt it, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think Pikachu EX can be a deck on its own. We'll have to see how good it is going forward. Next up at number 3, we have Suru Edge EX. Suru Edge is a Stage 1 Fire Pokemon with 270 HP. Its Abyssal Flames attack for 1 Fire Energy, 30 plus. This attack does 20 more damage for each energy card in your discard pile. So let's think about this. There's a card that I mentioned earlier. A card like Brilliant Blender that you could potentially use in this deck, where you can search your deck for 5 cards, 5 energy, and discard them. Yeah, that's something that we can use for the Suru Edge deck, because we can discard those 5 energy cards, 20 more for each of those fire energy cards. So discard your 5. That's 100 damage right there. So 130 for 1 energy, not horrible. But of course, this attack will build and build as the game goes on. There was a deck that I did see that ran, I think it was like 20 fire and like one I think it was like one of those other like rainbow kind of like energies. I don't remember what it was, if it was an A spec or not. But regardless, that is a lot of energy for this deck. It was just basically a straight Suru Edge deck. And if you get like 15 energy in the discard pile, it's 300 damage, 330. So there is a way you can hit for some big numbers. Yeah, this is not a bad card. I'm seeing a lot of people hype this up as well. And also, Suru Edge is a cool Pokemon. Not gonna lie. The second attack, Raging Amethyst for 280 and discard all energy from this Pokemon. Kind of gross. Not as good as the... No, well, there we go. I thought my computer just died there. Not as good as the Pikachu EX, where it does 300 and discard 3 energy from this Pokemon. Yeah, the Suru Edge, it's discard all energy, so you can put a 4th on Pikachu, you don't have to discard it. But if this has 4 energy on it, you have to discard all of it. So it's not as good as the Pikachu, but the Abyssal Flame, I think, makes up for it. And the fact there are cards out there that you can use to discard a lot of fire energy. You got the Brilliant Blender, you got Radiant Greninja. There's a lot of ways you can discard energy. So for the fact that you can discard energy and do a lot of damage with all those energy in the discard pile, yeah, this can hit for some big damage. So Suru Edge is here at number 3. Now, coming up at number 2, we have Magneton. Magneton is a Stage 1. Its ability, Overvolt Discharge. Once during your turn, you may attach up to 3 basic energy cards from your discard pile to your Lightning Pokemon in any way you like. If you use this ability, this Pokemon is knocked out. So here's a way you can power up your Pikachu EX. Use your Overvolt Discharge. So you use your Pikachu EX to use Topaz Bolt, discard the 3 energy from this Pokemon, then use the Magneton Overvolt Discharge, knock itself out, and put those 3 basic energy cards back onto your Pikachu. Now remember, it's important to note that it's just 3 basic energy. Any basic energy, so it can be metal, could be psychic, electric, water, grass, whatever you want. It just has to go to an electric Pokemon, or any electric Pokemon, just any way you like. Can be active, can be benched. I guess if you really want, you can attach it to Magneton and just go to the discard pile, because Overvolt Discharge, you knock itself out. But this can be used not only for Pikachu EX, can be used for Miraidon as well. So this is a quick way to get a Miraidon powered up pretty darn quickly. Miraidon might see a comeback in the format because of this card alone. And also the effect that it knocks itself out could lead up to more possibilities to where you're behind on prize cards now. You can use your counter catchers, you can use your counter gains, you can use maybe Iono, Roxanne, whatever the circumstance may happen to be. We see this all the time with these Dust Noir decks running around. They do place the damage counters, which is a little bit different, but it does knock itself out. And then it leads you to use some of these powerful cards that you wouldn't normally have access to. This was originally what I wanted to put at number 1, but I don't know how I feel about putting a Pokemon that's not an attacking Pokemon at number 1. But I don't know. I still like Magneton. It might still be the best card in the set, but I think there is one card that might be a little bit more useful ahead of Magneton. But still, Electric Ball, don't worry about. 2 for 40, it's whatever. But the fact, 3 energy, attach your lightning Pokemon anywhere you like, is a pretty powerful effect. Magneton is here at number 2. But before we get to number 1, I want to talk about a couple of honorable mentions that did not make my list. First honorable mention is this Kidon. Kidon, basic, 130 HP fighting type Pokemon, an ancient Pokemon. It's got the attack Unrelenting Assault for 2 energy, 30 plus, and if one of your other ancient Pokemon used an attack during your last turn, this attack does 150 more damage. So as long as you have a different Pokemon use an attack during your last turn, this attack can do 180 for 2 colorless energy. So this could be a decent pivot card to some of these ancient decks. We can see this in Roaring Moon decks. We could see it in Raging Bolt decks. This could be a very powerful card. Of course, I don't think the translation is 100%, so it's going to be interesting how this is translated, because I don't think you can use this Kidon's Unrelenting Assault during, let's say, the first turn you can attack, and then use this again, and then you don't get the damage boost. So it'll be interesting to see what the translation is for sure. But if it is like this, just make sure one of your other ancient Pokemon attack before this Kidon, so then you get that damage boost. So keep that in mind. Something to watch out for. The next card in my honorable mention is Terra Orb. It's just search your deck for a Terra Pokemon. And like I said, Terra Pokemon are becoming very, very popular. They are everywhere now. Charizard's everywhere. Dragapult's everywhere. Tealmask Ogerpon is everywhere. This is just something to go and get a Terra Pokemon. And like these Stage 2 Pokemon, they're playing, they're playing like their Arven, so you can use your Arven as an item card to get the Pokemon if you have the rare candy in hand. So it's a way to find the Terra Pokemon you need, like the Charizard, like the Dragapult, stuff like that, if you need to. But just a way to find your Terra Pokemon. It's not a bad card to have. There's quite a few Terra Pokemon, so it's okay by me. And the last card I want to talk about for the honorable mentions is Gastrodon. Gastrodon is a very interesting Pokemon. A Stage 1 fighting type with 130 HP. It has the ability Sticky Bind, as long as this Pokemon is on your bench. Benched Stage 2 Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, have no abilities. This can be very interesting. I'm talking a lot about Stage 2 Pokemon in this video, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this set, how it changes the format when it comes to Stage 2 Pokemon. We have the Gravity Mountain that I talked about earlier, which can reduce Stage 2 Pokemon's HP by 30, and this can essentially get rid of some Stage 2 Pokemon abilities. Now, before I go on, we need to mention that it's only benched Stage 2 Pokemon. So if your opponent has a Charmander in the active and they rare candy to Charizard EX, Sticky Bind will not work. Because remember, it's bench stage 2 Pokemon have no abilities. Not active, benched. And also this Pokemon can't be in the active. So you have to keep that in mind. But this can stop things like the Gardevoir EX from putting those psychic energies from the discard onto their psychic Pokemon. Can stop, let's say, Pidgeot EX from finding the card in their deck that they really need. But keep in mind that normally when you knock out their active Pokemon, they're going to put the Pidgeot EX in the active because it has free retreat. So then Sticky Bind won't really do much to it, but it's something to keep in mind. As something that can stop abilities on Stage 2 Pokemon when Stage 2 Pokemon are a little bit annoying, can be really good. Also, the Dusknoir. Yeah, you don't see Dusknoir in the active spot too much. So this can stop the Dusknoir if you find the Dusknoir very hard to deal with. But it won't stop the Dusclops because that's a Stage 1. So keep that in mind. And finally, the card that I think is the best out of Surging Sparks, in at number 1, Lados EX. This was the card I got really excited about when I first heard about it. Because Lados EX has the ability Skyliner. Your basic Pokemon in play have no retreat cost. It is essentially Floatstone for basic Pokemon. And I think you all know I like to play myself some Raging Bolt. Raging Bolt is, a basic deck, basic Pokemon deck. It's all basic Pokemon. So this is a cool way to retreat a Pokemon that you don't want in the active spot without playing like a switch card. Not to mention that Lados EX can go into many decks. There's the Miraidon deck that I mentioned earlier because that's going to play mostly basic Pokemon besides the Magnetons. There is, there's the Lost Box decks, the Comfy decks, which, like to put a Comfy in the active, use the ability, then likes to retreat and switch out, get a lot of flower selectings going to get stuff into the Lost Zone. There's quite a few decks that could take advantage of this Lados EX. Again, you could argue that this might not be the best card in the set, but this is a card that I'm very excited about, and I think that gives it into an edge as to why I think it's one of the best cards in the set. And this is my list. So, in my opinion, Lados EX is the best card from this set. So, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is my top 10 list for the upcoming set, Surging Sparks. This is what I think are the 10 best cards, but let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Let me know what you think is the best card in the set. Let me know what your top 10 cards are in the comment section down below. I would love to see them. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe, and be sure to join us for some more awesome perks right here on Mount Moon TCG.